Hello, my name is Josey Peele. I'm with the engineering department at AMADAS Industries, and we're here outside Windsor, Virginia today with Babb Farms. They've been nice enough to let us walk around one of their AMADAS 2120 combines. And we're going to go over that today with you and point out a few features and adjustments that might make things easier this coming harvest season. We'll start up here at the front of the combine. A critical thing every day is proper lubrication of this CV drive line. New style drive lines will have one grease fitting in the front cross that just greases the front cross. There is a plastic grease zerk in the middle that just lubricates the shielding. The grease zerk in the rear cross lubricates the cross and the center housing of the CV. That needs at minimum 15 pumps of grease a day. Preferably grease it until you can see some grease escape from the center cavity of the drive line. You'd also need to grease the telescoping portion of the drive line in the middle, and the pedestal shaft yoke, and then the rear yoke at the gearbox. If we take a look at the pin hitch for the combine, this would originally come with an 1.5 inch opening. That is a bushing that you can remove that will take you to a 2-inch pin hole, or there is a separate bushing you can take if you're on a smaller tractor that will take you down to an 1.25 inch hole. At the beginning of the season, it's also important to remember to check the oil level in your combine gearbox. You're going to want to have that filled up until oil just starts to dribble out of that plug there to the side of the gearbox. If you do overfill the gearbox, when you start running, it will very likely have some oil dribbling out of the breather, out of the top of the box. That's nothing to be concerned about there. If we look down at the header on this combine, we can see that this machine has been equipped with optional poly header bands. These bands are retrofittable to most machines built after the year, say, 2000. Do not necessarily recommend intermixing them, metal and poly. If you want to change them, go ahead and at the very least put poly everywhere that there is a windrow, but preferably just replace them all over the whole head. You'd also want to check the cam tracks on the sides of your header, check the condition of the bushings in your header from underneath, see if those need to be replaced before season. We also would want to look at the position of the auger in the head. If we look here at the closest position between the bottom of the flight and the bottom of the concave, we'd like that to preferably be no more than, say, 1.5 inches. When these machines leave the factory, they are set higher than that. Until the paint wears off, you need more clearance to help things flow better. The flight on these heads is 6 inches tall when it's new. It's going to wear down significantly faster in the center. If you need to replace flighting, replacement flights are available. These come in 1-wrap sections, so you do not have to replace the entire length of flighting on the auger if you don't need to. If you do need to adjust the auger in your head, there's a similar plate on the left-hand side. You would loosen these 4 bolts and then make your height adjustments with this draw rod here that you can raise or lower the cross auger with. As far as your header drive goes, newer machines have a one-way clutch attached to the combine auger. This clutch needs to be greased on a regular basis. If for any reason you need to take this clutch off, there are 2 set screws internal to this clutch that you cannot see from the outside. To access those, you would need to first disconnect your chain so that this can rotate freely, pull the grease fitting out of this hole, and then you can rotate the outer portion of this clutch around. With an Allen wrench stuck in this hole, you would then be able to find the set screws. There are 2 of them. After you've loosened those, and you would then be able to pull this clutch off the shaft if needed. With regard to the main drive, if you do have to change your main drive belt, I would recommend that you go ahead and drop this idler arrangement all the way down out of the way. Pull your belt off. Don't try to run the belt on one rib at a time. Go ahead and try to put the belt on one piece. And after you've got the belt on, go ahead and tighten it just as tight as you dare to tighten it. After it runs for 30 minutes to an hour and the belt's had time to get warm and stretch, you're going to need to come back and tighten this again. Given enough seasons and enough stretch on the belt, you will probably need to move this main idler from this deeper valley to this upper valley here, which will allow you to get some more tension on the belt, get some more life out of it. Also with belts, look down here at the cleaning fan belt. This is another belt that needs to run just as tight as you can keep it to maintain cleaning efficiency. After the combine has been running, if you come back with the machine off, of course, and feel this sheave, if it is getting warm, then your belt or your sheave itself is worn, and one of those two would need to be replaced. This is a newer combine that has our new single chain drive for the disc separator, as opposed to your series of triangular loop chains that you previously had on combines. This is retrofittable. If you wish to update your combine, kit is available for self-propelled and pull-type combines, and that goes back to say 2100 combines, 2002 or newer. On 2110, 2120 combines, a lot of people ask whether this belt is supposed to look the way it is with this twist in it. That is perfectly normal. It's twisted to reverse direction to keep the rear beater running the correct direction. It's also important when you're doing your daily maintenance to remove this inspection door, to look up under the disc separator, to also look into the cross auger. Oftentimes you'll get complaints that the combine is putting very lightweight trash in the basket, leaves, very small sticks. If that's the case, more than likely something has fallen through the disc separator and is hanging inside the airstream. And this is how you're going to access that. Pull off this door, you can see something hanging down, pull it out. On some older combines, there's a lower lip on the bottom of the first disc separator shaft that trash can get hung up on. To clean that off, I'd recommend that you have a piece of rod or rebar 5 feet long with a short hook on one end. You can go in from each side and clean that lip and keep from having air problems. Coming back toward the back end of the machine, look here toward the rear of the disc separator at the tailboard. I would normally recommend running the tailboard such that the top lip is even with the top of the disc separator shaft. That's going to be good for most situations. If you are in exceptionally green, heavy vines, you can drop the tailboard down. That'll help keep vines from getting caught in the rear end of the machine. However, if you're in very dry, light crop, you might want to raise the tailboard up even higher so that it will catch a few of those lightweight peanuts from blowing off the end of the tailboard. Our vine spreaders are not variable speed, but you can change the distance in which vine material is thrown out of the back of the combine by adjusting the angle that these flails are mounted to the disc. There's a decal on the side of the combine. This would be in a standard position, what we might call long throw. Remove your inner bolt here, leave this as a pivot bolt. Rotate the flail, mount in this hole. That would give you a medium throw. You rotate the flail further, put your innermost bolt here. That would be your short throw flail position. During normal operating, tell you to probably run the elevator air half, maybe 2/3 of the way open. You obviously want to fill the basket as well as you can, but you don't want to be slamming peanuts all the way across the bin and creating additional LSK problems. On newer machines, you will have a air pressure sensor. That's what's located in this little housing with a tube connected down into the airstream. That will give you a peanut duct load in your combine. Your monitor will also show you the relative position of your elevator air actuator. You also can have an alarm for the peanut door. That's triggered off this limit switch here. If your ductwork becomes clogged, then this door blows open. Normal setting for cleaning air, say, is approximately 2/3 open. On a scale of 1 to 10, probably around a 7. Good in most conditions. This 3-groove belt here running your elevator fan, it's another belt that you need to watch the tension on and keep that snugged up all the time. Before the season starts, I recommend that you pay close attention to your ductwork. Raise up the basket where you can look down inside or look up from your crossover hatch down at the bottom. Replace any panels that are worn or have holes in them. Newer machines, main stretch of ductwork is 4 individual panels. You can replace each panel as needed. This main transition elbow here has a stainless steel liner inside that can be changed before you start having wear on the outside of the duct. Newer combines with the single chain drive, all of that is driven from this one torque limiting clutch sprocket on the #1 disc separator shaft. This sprocket is actually not a sprocket, it's a balled idler that's on the #4 shaft. There never were any teeth on it, don't worry about that. You might notice all the sprockets on this combine are blue, except this sprocket on the #3 picking cylinder shaft. Stock sprocket on these machines is a 72 tooth. If you have a 2110 or newer with the 80 chain drive, this machine has been changed to a 65 tooth sprocket. That speeds the front end of the machine up 10%. If you're in really big, heavy vines, that's going to help the combine feed better, make it a little more aggressive. That is a common practice. It should be noted in most of your parts manuals. If you're on older combines, 2100s and older with 100 chain drive, the #3 sprocket would have been a 100 R60 sprocket. That can be converted to a 100 R54, and that would speed up the front end as well. In Virginia type peanuts, if that's what you're going to predominantly be harvesting, if you have breast bars in your combine, I certainly recommend that they stay disengaged. If all you're harvesting is Virginia peanuts, I would recommend that you actually take the springs off of the bar from underneath the combine. Normal harvesting conditions, I would tell you to have the #1 overhead stripper, a minimum 3/4 engaged, more likely fully engaged. That's going to help keep that front cylinder clean, help the combine feed better. If that's not getting off all of your peanuts, I will then go to the second overhead stripper, start trying to work that half engaged and continue to close it down to fully engaged until you're getting all the peanuts off the vine. If you still have a few peanuts left on the vine at that point, then I would tell you to start playing with PTO speed. 790 is normal 100% speed, but you can go up to say 107, 108% without any problems there, and that is viewable on your combine monitor. Before you start picking peanuts, I would highly recommend that you run the unloading conveyor system. It does not happen often, but on rare occasions, the conveyor belt can actually get stuck fast to the conveyor frame over the off season. And once that happens and it gets loaded down with peanuts, it is not going to turn hydraulically. It is, however, very easy to break free. If that happens, you can get a pry bar or a broom handle, anything handy, and you can stick that up in those forklift prong holes there, and be able to just push up on the bottom side of the belt and free the belt where it is stuck to the conveyor frame. If you do have an unload on the go system on your combine, there are a few grease points up at the top of the combine, most specifically the pivot point up there on the top of the basket for your conveyor brace. You do have grease points for basket pivots, but those don't have to be greased as frequently as the conveyor pivot. You'll also need to grease your bearings on the OCS conveyor. Another common question involves tracking the conveyor belt. If your conveyor is running, say, to the far right at the top of your conveyor, it has moved over to the right because that is the loosest side. And that means your left side is too tight. So you're going to want to make an adjustment on the bottom end of the conveyor. On the left, you're going to want to loosen that up. It's not going to take a lot in this case, maybe only a quarter or a half a turn. Then I would encourage you to let the conveyor sit and run at full speed for a few minutes and see where it's going to find its new home. If it still is running hard to the right, continue to make adjustments in, I'll say, quarter to half turn increments until your belt is centered. If your belt is still relatively well tracked, you can make all the adjustments you need here on the forward side of your conveyor using this push-pull rod as you need to change the bottom shaft position. Don't forget to check the condition of your picking cylinder teeth. Raise up the basket. Don't forget to engage your safety stop when you do that so that you can inspect the cylinders, concaves, and your teeth. Another important thing to look at is to inspect your concaves from the bottom. If you've brought up a lot of foreign material, run some roots, rocks through the combine, it's possible you have pushed out concaves. They're no longer as close to the cylinders as they should be, and it will allow material to pass through the combine without being threshed. So you may need to replace some concaves. If you do have to replace concaves or transition concaves, the simplest thing to help with that is to cut two pieces of 2x4 about a 1/4 inch longer than your combine body is wide. After you have taken all the bolts out of the concave you wish to change, loosen the bolts in the fore and aft concave, and then wedge those pieces of 2x4 up inside the combine. That will help spread the sheet metal just enough that you don't have to fight that concave as hard to get it up in place to change it. If you need access to your separator cylinders to inspect the cam tracks and the cam bearings and bushings, you can remove this cover that you see behind you, giving you full access to your separator cylinders. If you're checking your separator cylinder bars, more specifically the bushings, both the poly and the steel, what you look for is just how much play is in the bar in an upper position. This machine is new. You're still very tight. You don't have a lot of play over here at the ends of your pivots. If you get to a point that you have a cumulative total of, say, a 1/4 inch of play in that bar, it's time to start changing bushings. Obviously, if you are working on the inside of your combine, please be mindful of safety. If you have your basket raised, please engage the safety strut. Make sure that your key has been taken out of the ignition so that no one can inadvertently start the tractor. So while we're up here, we can just take a look inside the basket. Note that the covers over the augers can be raised or lowered, but the position where they leave the factory is suitable for almost all applications. As far as hydraulic capacity necessary for an OCS combine, you are going to need 5 remotes, preferably with a hydraulic flow of 40 gallons a minute, a minimum of 35. Any less than that, when you try to engage your unloading system, either your unloading system or your head is going to be sluggish running through the field. A dump combine is only going to require 4 remotes and a minimum of 25 gallon a minute hydraulic flow to maintain adequate head speed. If you happen to be trying to run this combine with a smaller tractor or a tractor that has insignificant hydraulic flow at lower RPMs, it is possible to change the main drive sheave. Most of them leave the factory with a 14-inch sheave, so you would run 790 RPMs on the PTO. You can drop that to a 13-inch sheave, and that'll allow you to run 850 RPMs on the PTO to put a smaller tractor more in its higher power range or give it better hydraulic flow. Well, I hope you found this helpful. If you have any additional questions, please don't forget to check your parts and operators manuals, or please feel free to give AMADAS Industries a call and someone will be more than happy to answer your questions. Thank you.